Continues our discussion on Ajax callbacks. So let's go now into working preview. And actually, before I do the callback, what I'm going to do is go put a checkbox column in as well. So I'm going to go now and search for and turn on the checkbox column as well. So let's go now into working preview, and I'm going to check rows 1, 2, 3, and 10, and then I'm going to hit the button for row number 1, which has Michael Jones Alpha Software in it. So as soon as I hit the button, you can see that the function, our callback handler, gets called, and because I put a debug 1 in, we've opened up the debugger, which of course only will work in working preview. So let's go now and look at what is inside E, so that we can see what information will be available to us when we write the Xbasic in our callback handler. So the first thing that I want to point out is that inside E there's an object called underbar current row data new, and if I look at that, what I can see is field values for all of the fields in the record that the user clicked the button on. So this data, though, was computed on the server by taking the primary key and looking up the data in the record, because as I pointed out earlier, this is a read-only grid. There's no data actually being submitted from the grid. But you can see here that E underbar current row data has in it all the data for the current row. So for example, there's the first name property there, E underbar current row data new first name, and that has a value of Michael, and there's last name is Jones, etc. So the next thing I'd like to point out is this next object, which is E underbar current row data old, which in this case is empty, and the reason that it's empty is that this is a read-only grid, so we only populate the E underbar current row data new object. In the case of an updatable grid, which we'll demonstrate next, this data would be filled in with the original values in each field, and then this object would be filled in with the current values in each field, which would be the values that the user had actually edited. Now, as you recall, we also checked 4 of the rows before we submitted. So if I go to the checkbox rows here, you can see that the count checked property, so e.checkboxrows.count checked is 4, which indicates that we clicked on 4 rows, and then rows here basically gives me the row numbers of each of the rows that was clicked. So the first row that was clicked was row 1 over there. The second row that was clicked was row 2. The third row that was clicked was row 3, and the fourth row that was clicked was row 10. So basically E dot checked rows dot rows is an array that happens to have, in this case, 4 entries in it because there were 4 rows that were checked. So it's an array that contains the row numbers of each row that was checked. And then let's go back here, and then you'll see also that there's another entry called e.checkedRows, and this basically has a subproperty for each row that was checked, and it has the primary keys for that row. So let's go here, for example, on key 4, and this is telling us that the primary key for row 4 for the fourth row that was checked is 10, which is the record number of that row. We'll look at this in more detail in the next video. So we'll pause here and continue in the next video.